Hello and welcome back to Arcturian Philosophy. I've been guided to start this episode with an Arcturian greeting, so I will do so. Artortai no sornone karna tarnane kornonai artarnosai noina. And today, what I will be talking about is something that I have actually talked about before, but I have not ever put it in a condensed little episode, but it is very fascinating. This happened on either August 19th or 20th of 2014, and I walked onto another dimension. Yes, wide awake, completely physical, and everything. I walked onto another dimension. I'll explain what was going on. This was in the middle of when they were trying to start the nuclear war, and this was before the set date for the nuclear war. And I was in the middle of trying to stop it, and I was being attacked. The entire town was being attacked. And finally, it occurred to me to get up and go to my parents' house, which was a 5-minute walk away. Because I was having carbon monoxide blown at me out my own vent. Things were being thrown at me. Little strips, which had flesh-eating bacteria, would appear in random places. I was being exposed to some sort of radiation so that I would burn in the sunlight. The whole thing, it was insane. And what preempted it was actually, I know the day before, I said, I notice that a lot of you guys online that I see on Facebook that are harassing me are Italian. My family is from the East Coast, and I know what a sit-down is. A sit-down is a mafia term, which means two parties sit down and talk and no one gets hurt. It's supposed to prevent people from getting hurt. So I said, I want to sit down in the middle of chaos around me. And so I got out. I was holding my key in my hand, my key to my parents' house in my hand, and I walked out the door with my purse and started walking, and I got maybe 20 feet, and then suddenly I heard a clink on the ground, and I just sort of knew suddenly that it was my key to my parents' house, meaning that I couldn't get in. So I looked in my hand, and sure enough, the key was gone. And then as I looked up, I looked around and I realized, wait, the buildings are different colors, and I was standing right next to a dumpster. The dumpster had disappeared. There was no trash can. Like, there were no trash cans in this place. Like, all the dumpsters were gone. And then suddenly I felt the sun. It was blistering hot. Like beating down as if there was no ozone layer. And I was like terrified. So I still walked over to my parents' house anyway, and I actually saw it was very strange. I had this sudden feeling I'm on like an alternate overlaying dimension or something. As I walked there, I saw my brother's car, and I thought, okay, that's there. All right, some things are still the same here. I tried to go back up to my apartment to go back inside, and the key did not work in the lock, and there was a doorbell, and I didn't have a doorbell. So this was like somebody else lived in my apartment, and I was awake just as you are awake right now, as I'm awake right now, and moving. It was exactly the same. And it just happened just like that, with no transition. It was seamless the way it occurred. And so I walked over to my parents' house. I tried to yell. No one would respond. But I saw there this satanic altar basically set up, and they wanted to like burn me as a sacrifice and eat me. It appeared the reptilians that had taken over the area, and I just the entire time I was there, I had this feeling, oh my god, I have to get out, I have to get out, I have to get out, or I'm gonna die, I have to get out, or I'm gonna die. Um, I also saw Josie there in a human like form. Uh, I saw her there, and she spoke to me, and she asked me, like we walked past each other, and I stopped, and I said, I was like, hey, like, hello, like, whoa, what the fuck? And she said, are you going to do the ceremony? And I was like, what? I don't know. I don't know. Um, and yeah, that it was very bizarre. And so then, as I walked back in after talking to her, there were these two guys pushing a laundry cart, and the one guy said to the other guy, "Okay, so if you want to talk, let's talk." And see, at the time, I didn't know how reptilians talk to each other. They will talk to each other by talking out into space. Like, that's how they speak to each other. And I did not know that. And so I understood that they were talking to me, but I didn't know how to respond. So I just said nothing. And I thought, okay, well, like if I would sit down in one place, I would get like randomly attacked. Like things would hit me or get thrown at me. It seemed like I could die at any moment. Practically, things manifested very quickly there as well. Was what I noticed too. This version of Earth, where there was no ozone layer, no trash cans, and everybody was terrified. There was also a heightened psychic ability across the board, or across everybody, a heightened psychic ability. But everyone was like totally terrified, and so at one point I was just sitting there like this, like trying to hunker down against getting hit with random things, random stuff that would sting me and stuff, and random attempts to break my bones or things like that. I just sat there like this, and this lady walked by with two children, and there were two people that walked by, and one person had a daughter, and the girl said, she hasn't been here for a long time, Mommy. She'd live a lot longer if she stayed. And then there was another person that walked by, an Indian lady with two children, and I looked at the boy. My eyes followed him as they walked, and he tugged on his mother's hand and said, "Mommy, she pushed me." And I said, no, I was just looking at your beautiful son. And then I felt this sense that from her, that she took that to mean that I wanted to eat him. And I thought, oh my God, no, oh shit, no. And what was very funny was I had two water bottles that were empty that I needed to throw out, and there were no trash cans anywhere. So finally I went up to a random door, and it turned out to be the woman that I had yelled after, no, I don't want to eat your son. And I asked her, how do I throw these out? And she just kind of looked at me with this very, very terrified look in her eyes, and just sort of shook her head and closed the door. And I was like, what? Like, okay, where am I, and what am I going to do about the fact that I am here? Okay. I knew that I needed to get out as fast as possible. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna follow the signs. All right. The one complex was called Bridges, the other one was called Reflections, and I lived in Reflections. And part of getting controlled is you're kind of trapped in on yourself, like in a house of mirrors. So that's the significance of a reflection. Um, and I saw the housing office this way, and I thought, well, I know I have my purse, so I technically somehow probably have money, and I guess I'd have to get an apartment, wouldn't I? So I walked over to the housing office. They were closed, so I thought, okay, what do I do here? So then I just kept on walking, and I thought, wait a minute, all right, bridging dimensions. I'm in a different dimension or an overlaying one. I'm in some other place, and you bridge a dimension. So I'm walking through bridges, and there was a bridge that you could walk across to get to where I lived as well. And so I began to walk over that way and thought, okay, and now reflections. And I looked over the bridge and saw the water and the reflection of the water and thought, and this is a bridge here. All right, this is a bridge and reflection of the water. And I bet you that if I walk across this bridge, that will be like bridging dimensions, and that I'll be back in my house. I bet that's what will happen. And I began to walk across the bridge, and halfway across the bridge, suddenly I saw like my house, like no doorbell or anything, like my house come into view, the correct color building and everything. But then I suddenly heard in my head, like, if you cross the bridge, you can't come back. And so then I started walking faster. So I assume if I'd looked behind me, I would have seen that other place. But I walked faster and then walked straight back into my apartment and was like, oh my God, relieved. Like, oh my God, and thought, okay, well, I have no house key anymore. I can't get into my parents' house. Shit, they took my house key. But that is my stuck on another dimension story. Yes, it was terrifying. It was terrifying, but in retrospect, it's very interesting. And I will go around here and look at dumpsters and think, oh, hi, you don't exist in some timeline or something. You don't exist anymore. Someone told me that in the future, we don't have trash cans because we learn how to incinerate our trash or something. So it could have been like a future timeline possibility. I don't know. So there you have it. And I will close with another Arcturian gesture. Sortate nortonai kartartoanaya kokena kornaena artartornaya sekenoena a sono sortate taeno koronai keana. Thank you and blessings to you all.